Morning, John. How are you? You look a little bit out of sorts today.
Yeah, I'm kind of drifting in and out of old memories today. And I don't know if I'm out of sorts or just contemplative. And I'm thinking first, like, just make America great. When was America great? So many people immediately, at least of our generation, go back to Opeyville, Andy and all that kind of stuff. That's when America was great. And I don't know that it was, but that's kind of where it's not everybody's greatness is what I mean.
Right.
But for me, it was a great time because one of my fondest memories is what I'm having right now, sitting on my front porch with my grandparents in lead mine. And they were porch sitters, and they watched the world go by. And it was really, really peaceful, swatting flies and drinking a soda or a tea and just waving at people.
So that's where you are today, mentally.
Yeah, Bingham Canyon, sitting, watching people go by.
Well, when I talked to you earlier this morning, you indicated that you didn't know if we had anything to talk about because the United States is boring. That was your phrase.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, I think. But I just, it just feels boring, right? But there's ways that I think we can stretch to that. But on Bingham, you remember the canyon. Everybody back then watched from their front windows and their front porches, and people went by and waved and waved and waved and said, "Hi, what are you doing? I'm cooking some bread." And
came up the steps and said hello and might have a glass of wine or whatever, depending upon who you were, or talked about what had happened, even what had happened on the hill that day. And
when I drive around Salt Lake and I go through older neighborhoods, I can see the same thing probably played out there.
Sure.
And now I go living in suburbia. I live in the middle of, the valley, and houses aren't constructed that way.
No.
Houses are constructed I don't have a front porch. I got a landing. There's some porches in the neighborhood that people don't use them. They throw something out there, but they don't use them like we are familiar with. And we become a backyard culture. And so whoever comes to the front door is basically unwelcome. It's a relative. Get the hell out of here. Can't stick around. It's somebody complaining. It's a FedEx or something knocking at the door. It's a salesman. We don't use our front porches and front doors at all the same way.
No.
And we're just isolating ourselves just physically with our own homes and the way communities develop from that old time when it was great.
The little community I live in on Capitol Hill, it really stretches from 3rd North down to 2nd North and below the Capitol, and then between State and Main for those few blocks. And it once was a real community. It's changed a little bit. There are a couple of apartment complexes there, small ones. But I have a front porch, we do. And it's one of the reasons we bought the house, because it's a porch that extends in the front and around the side.
It's enclosed a little bit, right?
No, it's out. I mean, the people that walk past the house on Gray Avenue or on Wall Street, they're out there. And Kay and I bought it in part for that, because I always liked the idea of being able to sit out on my front porch and see what was going on. Not to be nosy, but also when we first moved there, even more so than now, there were people that had been there for a while, and they would walk by and say hello. The kind of the mater familis of the area, a lady named Vicky, who grew up in the house that now she's in a care facility, and broke that house up into little apartments 3 doors down from us. Big house, nice old house. We'd always talk to her, and she always made a point of talking to us when we moved in to make sure that we did everything in accordance with how she wanted it. But we got to know our neighbors pretty well, and still do. And that's one of the nice things about that neighborhood. And so, neighbors across the street, Kitty Corner from Miss Marty and his wife, wonderful people, and you get to know them, and it makes it better. But it isn't like it used to be, because I'm out on the front porch a lot, even in the summer and the spring or fall. Not as much as I would like to be.
Well, that's part of what's wrong with our phones and everything. We're distant from each other. Now we can see who's calling us. You choose who to talk to, who not to talk to. But it dawned on me today, sitting on this imaginary front porch, and my grandparents sitting there, and we don't do that. And the distancing of us began actually before this modern era of unwinding ourselves from our neighbors. And we don't. I mean, I remember when, home grills were first promoted on television, and stuff like that. They cooked in the front yard on those commercials. Right. And the whole neighborhood is going, wow, Ron's got some burgers on.
Right.
And you'd say, hey, neighbor, do you like yours with cheese?
Right.
And that doesn't happen because we're in the backyard fence up, and people are now going, I wonder if he's grilling so that it's concealing the marijuana smoke.
I know.
You know, like,
that's hilarious because there always has to be another motive today.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that to a degree. I think we all are.
Yeah.
But
I'm not, because if I do anything that's gummy, nobody can smell it, right?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that
sorry.
Specifically. But I'm just talking about, I hope I wouldn't be there, but there is. I mean, we're a more cynical country, and that's kind of a good place for us to go. I had the thought after you and I talked this morning about the word boring, and I know you're going to talk a little bit about it from perspective of the Greek word, but when we think of boring, we think of that as being always bad. But I had a similar reaction to you, and we haven't discussed this. America, when it was boring, when it was really boring, and when it has been boring, it's been boring during our lifetimes. That's when things are working well. It's boring because people have a job.
In the current context of boring, or in our memory of boring?
Just in the idea of what boring is, and many people's idea, it isn't exciting. There isn't a lot of things happening.
There's a nuance there, boring, and then what? Yeah. It can result in two things: being bored or being tuning out.
Yeah, the adverb causing weariness and restlessness through the lack of interest that we might have. But there's also another kind of boring, and it is what we talk about when people harken back to the 50s and the early 60s, and that was every day there wasn't another problem to deal with. Every day there wasn't a fear of getting drafted. Every day there wasn't a fear of losing your job. Every day there wasn't the necessity to keep up with the Joneses. Every day there wasn't the necessity to know whether or not your neighbor was hiding the smell of marijuana under that. We now live in a world where the idea of boring is bad in the large spectrum of things because we as Americans can't sit still. We've always got to be doing something. We can't have a quiet moment. I relate it to the idea of going to a baseball game where there's got to be walk-up music for every player. Everybody has to have practiced their bat flips. You can't not talk to the person next to you. I ran into my godfather, Johnny Muhar, and McGraw, Joe Lovrich, many times at Dirks Field, where they would be there smoking their cigars, having a beer or something else, and watching a ball game and just sitting there talking in the old Dirks Field, and you could go sit down and talk to them. And for some people today, that would be incredibly boring because they're not playing a bingo game. There isn't somebody coming through the stands dressed as a Yettle, or whatever. There's none of that stuff. There was none of that stuff. And I really, in many ways, and it's just not the older that I get, I loved that attitude. As somebody who's pretty hyper myself, to go to a ball game and sit down and watch the game, keep score, was a great thing for me. And again, taking it to Bingham, I think about those two men who I had immense respect for.
Yeah, good guys, both of them good guys.
Yeah.
But you got the word there, boring. What do you got? Italian, Latin, Croatian for boring? What do you?
I do. I have. I also have a Greek word, but
okay.
I don't know if it's the correct word, and my pronunciation is going to be bad. And it is Bapreto, B-A,
It's a V. Yeah,
P.
That's a V. And the P is an R.
Yeah, R-E-T-O, Barreto. Vareto, yeah.
Varetos or varetai.
Yeah.
That's like it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I think of my context of boring, as I mean it today, it's more like the other side. Boring. It's not a boring as we use it. It's not an old Latin word. It's not an old.
No, it's an old English word.
Yeah, so it doesn't really have the exact correlation. But you're more of an etymologist. You get what are some words that sound like boring, use like boring?
To bore is where it comes from.
Yeah.
It comes from animals that bored into things, and it's a High Germanic word actually. I read this today. I didn't know it, and it also comes from the Proto-European, where all of our languages come from, which means to bore, B-O-R, to bore.
Yeah.
In Italian, it's a little bit interesting, to me at least. In the Italian, bore, as we're talking about it now, is annoiato, to be annoyed.
Annoyed,
okay?
Right, yeah.
In Spanish, it's aburrido. And what's interesting about that is rido, or rire, is to laugh. So it's the absence of laughter, okay? In Croatian, I didn't know this, it's bušiti. And then in Latin, it is obtundo. So obtuse, something that is just un-effing interesting. So that's what it means. The other words that I thought about after we talked, mundane, inane, insipid, uninspiring, ridiculous, those are kind of more particularly inane and mundane and insipid.
The Greeks have a word, when I'm tired, ime kuras menos, I'm tired. And are you tired? You're using that same root word. But that's the word they typically use when they're describing something that's boring them.
Yeah.
So they would say, echo kurasti naton akul, tired of listening to you. Or to him. And you can put whatever you want to him, to her, to the name. You're tired of something. And that's the boring usage in Greek, kind of the boring usage of Greek. If you're tired, and in that context then was the boring of the USA. I'm tired of this stuff in the USA.
It's fatigue.
It's fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm fatigued of this, and we've both been saying it for a long time, just in English. It's chaos. It's tiring. It's worrying me out. God, when does this shit end? And there's actually people doing the same thing in Croatia and Greece today.
Everywhere,
so the same. So, I'm tired of this fatigue, this we're having. It's a year on now from when first there was the anxiety of like, will it come back? That was last year. And then now it did come back, and I'm tired of it.
No, one of the sub definitions of boring in the dictionary is causing weariness and restlessness through loss of interest. And so I think that's where we are with Donald Trump. I mean, I think that's where we are with politics. I think that's where we are with a lot of the world today. Everything is constantly sticking in your face. That there isn't a moment of relaxation. There's always a tension and a weariness. And in that sense, we're bored. And I think it meets all of those definitions. I mean, when you look at the full meaning of it, so in a sense, I've got to give you credit. And I said this morning, I mean, that is a brilliant take on where we are, intended or not, because we are fed up. We're bored. We're annoyed.
I'm tired of this very thing right now, and top of mind, should be top of mind. My good friend sitting across me, what did we talk about 2 weeks ago in this show? I'm serious. Where'd our memories go? When we were young, someone would go out and buy the latest Cream album, and you'd listen to it for a month and discuss Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker, and you stayed on topic. We can't stay on topic anymore. It's so chaotic.
Right. No.
Okay. Then how about last week? Cutting it shorter. How about yesterday? There's one person that functions in this. Donald Trump.
No.
And he is the most chaotic, and that's where his world is, and all the rest of us are bouncing around reacting to it every freaking day. His idea of presidency is not about Americans. It's about boy, I'm amped up now. And everything I do, they love me.
Or if they don't love me, they're going to talk about it, and we do because we feel the need to. And in many ways, we do feel the need to. I mean, it's when you said we were boring. My first response mentally was, what the hell do you mean we're boring? And I just listed a few things.
Yeah.
We're not in a boring time. We're in war with Venezuela. He wants to attack Greenland. His own party, some of them, have turned on at least some of his acolytes, like the senator from North Carolina did about Steven Miller, when Tillis just jumped him and said, "You don't speak for America. I love Donald Trump, and you may speak for the president of the United States. you don't speak for what the United States Senate is going to do. We've got Harvey Milk Blvd, right close to where we are, wanting
How many
to
streets are there in Utah that
Charlie Kirk Avenue.
Well, how many? I don't know jack about Charlie Kirk. Okay, I knew him as a meme. I watched some of his so-called debates here and there. He usually got his ass kicked, frankly, when somebody really challenged him in a debate world. He was very, very skilled at presenting his points. I get it. And was he a great Christian? Not, or whatever. That little piece of it, that great Christian, has turned into its own meme. We've idolized him and martyred him, but deservedly or not, this Trevor Lee Yahoo, who's the guy behind
He's behind it, yeah.
He's anti-gay.
Right.
He doesn't have one thing to say good about any, whole LGBTQ plus anything, nothing, especially transgender. So he could have picked any road in Utah should he have wanted to honor Charlie Kirk.
Right.
And instead of honoring Charlie Kirk,
he's degrading somebody else.
And that is the whole right there. Why can't you just pick the next street over if it's a gosh damn valuable or meaningful? Or why don't you do the one he was driving upon? Or why don't you do it in your backyard? But no, he wants to change. And I remember Harvey Milk era. I remember when he was shot and all that kind of stuff in Moscone. And was he exonerated beyond that? Who freaking knows? But it's a street name, and it has some meaningful stuff there now after a long, long time. I'll tell you what, Trevor Lee, why don't you go rename Carl Malone Drive? Why not?
Why not? Well, I mean,
at least Harvey Milk had some redeeming qualities. Find me 10 on Carl outside of a dunk.
But here's the problem with that type of stuff, and with Trevor Lee. It's not about Charlie Kirk.
He's using it as his own cudgel to beat down on something he doesn't like.
And it's about him. That's the deal with Trump. That's the problem with Trump and this stuff. It's about that individual who has a little bit of power. And when you think about Trump, here's how I've decided the best description of how he runs government. He runs government. Do you remember the bumper cars out at Lagoon? Okay, this is how he runs government. It is, I'll run into as many people as I can, and I'll have a bigger bumper car than everybody else. It's also the fastest
one.
And I'm going to run into everybody and then tell everybody how I'm the greatest bumper car driver in the world because I have a better car than them and I'm going to be able to do it. Because that's how he does with stuff. So let's continue to go on. China now has a major surplus with the United States, and you think, and they're threatening Taiwan, and discussions once again about Trump's relationship with Putin vis-a-vis Ukraine. And when is it going to happen that Trump decides that he's going to take Greenland? Russia and China will go, that's okay, and we give Taiwan up to China, and we give the Ukraine to Russia. People are worried about that now because that's how he does stuff. We're not, again, to talk about why America's not boring in the one sense. ICE killed a woman in Minneapolis. They've killed, by a count that I recently read, 78 people since Trump has started this deal. 78 people have died.
Is that attributable to what? Died or killed?
Died, not killed.
Okay.
Died. But it can be, I mean, if we want to be technical about words, if they die in your custody and you don't take care of it, they were killed. But so 78 people have died. He's doubled down on sending people to Minneapolis. The outpouring of opposition to that all over the country is great. But he's worried about that evil Iranian government, which it is, executing people that are protesting in Iran, but he's not worried about people that are protesting in the United States that have been executed or killed by ICE.
Can you imagine this scenario? Renee Good, by the way, she was being shot, or it was happening right when we were on last week. We didn't discuss it at all.
No, we didn't at all.
So we didn't know. And yet, with the things we were talking about, I do remember a little bit, were leading up to a Renee Gold situation. And it happened right when we were talking. Well, this is a curiosity, isn't it? Because what you said a moment ago, Taiwan goes to China and Ukraine goes to Russia. That's hemispheric looking, correct? That's what Mario Rubio said. We're the Western Hemisphere. We're going to dominate the West, and this is it. Then you come to the Middle East. Then we ought to get our ass out of there, Mario.
Yeah.
Because, hey,
it's not our hemisphere.
It's not our hemisphere. Leave it alone. And, oh, wait a minute. If you do that, then all of the backing that you've been given Israel, all of the love you've been showing Qatar, and all the rest of it goes away unless you're willing to become honest about it.
But
they're not. And so...
Because none of it is honest, because none of it is thought through. And
Zero.
That's where we get tired of it. It is a tweet in the middle of the night bringing up Greenland again. And it's a lack of knowledge. And this is what Tillis said to, when on the floor of the Senate, said about Steven Miller. The North Atlantic Treaty between us and Denmark, being one of our signatories to that, have been supportive of the United States. They have backed us more than a lot of people. They are responsible for Denmark. You don't speak for the American people when you say we want to own Denmark. And then he listed all of the things that Denmark had done to support us in the war on terror after 9/11, and how they lost a bunch of soldiers who fought there and died. And of course, Steven Miller doesn't know that.
I think Steven Miller does know that. Steven Miller is a corrupted brain cell that should. He's a terrible person.
I don't believe he knew that they lost people in 9/11. Maybe he did. It doesn't matter. And he makes it worse. But the fact of the matter is, we got people who wake up and think something really sounds good, and they speak for Americans. And the pushback in America continues to come, and it's going to. But in the meantime, what's going to happen next? Hence, you're bored in the sense that you're worn out with this stuff, as we all are. And we get to the point about what we do with it. What do we do?
Well, an attack on Greenland is an attack on NATO.
Yes.
So if
a threatened attack on...
Right. Here's what you asked. So, I can't think of an instance where Trump thought about day 2 on anything or the consequence.
No.
Tariffs, let's put them on. Didn't think about what would happen when they're being pushed back. Throw 3,000 ICE agents into a city that didn't need ICE help, Minneapolis.
Right.
When Renee Good was shot last Tuesday, that was the second shooting by gun in Minneapolis. How many of there have there been in Salt Lake City since the first of the year?
There was just one the other day.
They're all, so bring ICE here, please. We need help more than Minneapolis does.
But see, that's the point.
I'm just saying, Ron. No, they do this stuff. Don't look at day 2.
No.
Okay. So day 2, if we attack Greenland, means what? The predicate is we've got to protect the North. Greenland is over 2,000 miles away from any U.S. border. However, Alaska is 50 miles away from the Russian border. Right. And this is going to somehow do something, change the stability, and we'll follow this. When we attack them, NATO only has one call: fight back or tell USA, get your air bases out of here.
Right.
Then you got a bigger problem, and that's the day 2 that Trump is, and all this about this glorification of getting something and making the 51st, and they'll be happier with us and all that, whatever the rationale is. Day 2 is very ugly. And then that's not discussed because that's not where his mind goes.
Well, or his advisors, because they just think they can bully their way through because they have a lot.
Well,
they have. They've done it with media. They've done it with law firms. They've done it with a lot of things with their fellow Republicans. I think that the issue is, and I really mean this, so not what do they do, what do those of us who really feel fatigued every day and reading this stuff, what do we do about it? How do we respond? Can I give you one way?
Yeah.
There's a new, because you brought up Cream, great band. They were. There is a young singer, and I mean, he's young. He's like 28, 30 years old. My granddaughter, Gabrielle, who's been on our program, called me and said, Grandpa, do you know a guy named Jesse Wells? Do you know him,
Yeah,
Bill?
He's got some good stuff out.
And I'm going to tell you what, I listened for about an hour yesterday. He's got some great stuff out. One song is called The President. One is Good versus Ice. Bugs. He's got a bunch of great songs. And he's a good singer. And appears to be a good musician, at least from my perspective.
They're somewhat saying he's the new Bob Dylan-ish. He's the voice and that kind of stuff.
Well, you know what? And I'll tell you what. He may be. You immediately go there because he apparently writes a song a day. When something happens, he writes a song about it. And so he's a poet. So one thing that we can do so that we don't get too down in the dumps is to find people like that we can relate to and we can see that there is poetry out there for what we as true Americans. I don't think MAGA is true Americans. I think those of us that struggle with this stuff and don't just buy into it are the real Americans.
I think that you're pretty right. I mean, early on, I guess you could say, well, we all have different opinions. But 10 years later, something's a shift. You know, it's like, okay, you had your chances. You've seen this stuff. It's all documented. This has not been good.
McCarthy was the real deal for about 3 years, too. Trump's handled it longer, no doubt about it. He's had it longer. But that's one way we can do it. And the other way we can do it is occasionally to sit out on our front porches, to communicate better. I mean, I have to acknowledge, I have more interplay with you, which is basically on Wednesdays now, it used to be Tuesdays, than I have with a lot of people because I am a very private person, really, and I like my privacy, and I am one of those guys that the doorbell rings and the first word out of my mouth is an epithet. You know,
don't answer. Don't.
Just me and the dog.
Take your shoes off and don't walk on the wooden floor. Yeah.
But you know, maybe we got to be better than that, and we have to realize that America's great. Ron's opinion. When it's boring, because when it's boring, everything is working. People have jobs. Homeless have houses to be at. Roads work. The infrastructure works. You can smile. You can watch a sitcom on TV. You can watch a sporting event, and you can enjoy it. And you don't immediately have to go to who's going to be the champion of college football in 2027, which they're already speaking about, when we don't even have one for 2026, and allow yourself to live in the moment that we have now, because there are beautiful things happening now, and there's good out there, and we miss it. We miss that stuff because we've got a knucklehead who truly wants to be a dictator, and his team out there making it seem as though they're going
the descriptor of Trump medically is narcissism and beyond narcissism, right? But this is not a first. I looked up a little bit of stuff too, and because we've said and I've written, history repeats itself, which is kind of attributed to all kinds of people, and sometimes it's not that history repeats; it's forgetting to remember history. Okay? Yeah. So, as proudly of a Greek that I am, 404. I'll ask you the quiz. You look at me, and go, what the. Ron, what happened in Greece in 414
I know,
BC?
This is what he does. I mean, he does this 440 BC.
414.
14. Well, it wasn't the Peloponnesian War.
Part of it. It had a role in it.
Well, that's close. It wasn't Thermopylae.
Athens was the imperial power.
Okay.
The word power. And the word
was that when Athens and Sparta fought?
Here's what happened.
Well, so power, am I close?
Sparta does have a lot to do with it. Yeah. So Athens was. Okay, listen.
I at least ought to get.
Do you know who the Greek historian Thucydides?
Of course I do.
Okay, so he wrote about it, and when he wrote about it, it became what was called the Melian Dialogues.
Okay.
Athens was a supreme power, and in their power, they got quite arrogant. And this is we think of what was going on in Greece as all these Platos and the philosophers, all stuff, but power was power, and power rules at the end of the day. So Milos, an island that was contested a little bit, who's going to be there, not unlike Greenland, was a very peaceful island, very much like Greenland. And Greece decided they wanted Milos for whatever reason.
Coming back to me.
So the island was peaceful, it was a thoughtful island. Athens was strong and powerful and said, we want your island. It's USA saying, we want Greenland. So they exercised their power and attacked. It was going to be no battle. There was nobody. I've been to Milos. It's not very big. But Milos was doing the ethical, logical, it's not right. It's not who we are. It's the weak Democratic Party today. And leave us be. We don't want to be enslaved. Blah, blah, blah. So Athenians said, well, we'll make that easy. When they attacked the island, they killed all the men.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And enslaved everybody else. I think all the males over 16 or 18 years old, something. And it was, the Melians were saying, live free or die. And the Athenians said, okay, die. Because there was going to be a no contest.
Right.
Ethics, justice, rules, all of that were useless against power. Useless against power.
Yeah,
We could have one's thought and one's a gun. The real currency, therefore, is power. And that's being wielded now in the United States, power. Not right, not wrong, not ethic, not morality.
Not
it's
the
power,
law.
not the law.
Not the Constitution.
And then he's saying, Trump says this, Mario says this, Rubio, the knucklehead, Stephen Miller says this, don't mess with us. They're not messing with us, but now it's assertive. And it's this exercise of power is influencing lots of negativity across the globe. So the outcome was from Thucydides. He said, if unchecked power leads to unchecked control for more power, it doesn't stop.
Right.
It's cyclical. Don't be naive was his message, and be aware. And in modern day America, Trump is the ultimate vessel to deliver that power. We're already powerful. We just had ethics and morality, right of history, senses of right of wrong. That was the guardrail. All those guardrails, your business of law and order and truth and courts and justice has been punctured.
No.
Mine of journalism has been punctured. Science has been punctured. And all those leakages out leave him in that center vacuum of power. But here's the thing. Day two, what happened after? The strongest force in the world took Milos.
Yeah.
What happened after?
Sparta.
Yeah, here it is.
And the Spartans were really great warriors. They were known to be that.
In essence, this is what happened. The Melian takeover, the brutal conquest of Milos in 416 BC, that's when it finally happened, foreshadowed the harsh realities of Athenian imperialism, but it was the ultimate Spartan victory in the broader Peloponnesian War that led to Athens' political downfall and the end of its dominance. That was their day two.
Yeah.
It showed that other powers, Sparta, because there wasn't just one, that Athens was just the top one. And in our world today, there's multiple superpowers.
Right.
Even France has a whole bunch of nuclear weapons that'll be pointed the wrong way when we go after Greenland.
Well, and the thing about...
Day two is coming, and nobody's thinking about it. They're just thinking, oh, cool, look what we did. We got 51 states. Actually, I cheer for that part, because they'll have 2 senators and a rep that'll change the balance of power. But they won't be a state. There won't be a state.
It's going to... Well, I think a lot of people are thinking about it. Even my aside about Taiwan and Greenland and the Ukraine, people that have any sense are thinking about the balance of power in the world today. And what the Athenians didn't think about was that there were going to be other Greek city-states that aren't going to like what they did.
Right.
And we're also going to realize if they do this, we're going to be next. And so we're going to get together and we're going to fight them. They beat them.
It happened 404 to 104, about a 14 or 15 year span.
Yeah.
Athens collapsed.
This happened throughout history. In other places as well, in the Roman Empire and during the Roman Republic, it happened. But what I think, and our forefathers that put together our Constitution and the idea of a democratic republican form of government understood all this. They knew about Athens. They'd read Thucydides. They understood this stuff. It's our own ignorance of that as a people that leads us to believe that somehow we're different. We're not different. We're not. We tried to be different. We tried to be different by inviting people who needed a place to live free to come. We did it in some bad ways. We did. We took country in bad ways. But we developed an idea that this is a place of freedom, that everybody has a chance. Who is it? Also, he said, come on, is it Garth Brooks? No, it's Brooks and Dunn. everybody had a chance. Everybody gets to dance.
Okay. Well,
And we, because of this idea that we are Caucasian-centric, and that's who really we are. That's the only people that ever did any good in this country. And that group of people did some really good things, that all these other people have to go.
there's a difference between what Greece did with that knowledge and what the United States did with it. So as Greece endures today as a center of like, wow, look at, this is where it all began. This is where freedom began. This is where theater began. This is when humor began. This is when satire began. This is when everything began. Everything we love and treasure, democracy began right there on that hill that you're standing on. It's reverent. It's not a temple, but people get it because you've seen this imagery over and over. So Greece always had, even enduringly today, when people are, there's a word for what Greeks think of themselves as and what they express as philoxenia. You're kind of strangers. And what they did was invite everybody to Athens. Come and learn from us. The Romans certainly the Romans, they learned and they built the same things. They took the same architecture. They did the same thoughts and processes. They embraced it and they spread it. And it spread one way to the west and it spread to the east.
And some people would say they even made some of it better.
They made some of it better, no two ways. I mean, Greece had its flaws. But the point there is Greece invited people in to learn. There's a nuance, a difference is what we do. What we've invited people in to escape. And we're not going to teach it. We don't even teach our own. You could walk out of this building right now, walk over to State Street in front of Starbucks or wherever, and hold people on the street and say, here's a map. Show me Kansas. Yeah. Let alone tell me about the writings of Virgil, whatever.
Yeah.
And they can't. I saw this. It's humorous when you see it on Jimmy Kimmel or the nightlife shows. But I'm just saying, you get a chuckle out of it.
Right.
But they ask the most simple, seemingly, questions. There was one was it yesterday, like, from where we are right now, where is Canada? Well, Canada. This is true, Yeah. And they go, Canada. I don't know. Where's Mexico? That's over there to the left. No, that's the Pacific Ocean. Well, I don't know where Mexico is. These are our two best neighbors, our two biggest. They're not like lost on a map.
Two biggest trading
partners. And so if we're at the very core of it, not even teaching our own citizens, I don't see that in Greece and not being, anything. You go to Greece and you can have an actual pretty cogent conversation about world politics and things. They know who Trump is. They know how we behave. Our entertainment systems, our books and literature are highly valued over there because it teaches them the language and it also teaches us who we are. They're studying us far more than we're studying them.
Well, but I take just a little bit of issue that we didn't invite people here to learn. We did. For years and years and years, people came from all over the world to study at our best institutions. Up until recently, when we made it clear that our institutions only want people here to get money from them, and that's a fact. And so, and under Trump's administration, we've driven professors that are not American citizens that have been taught at universities under legally and lawfully under the immigration laws. They made them leave. We don't want to teach about what a lot of other countries are about, and to do that. We watered down degrees a lot. We've eliminated a lot of degrees. The University of Utah dropped a lot of programs. They dropped a lot of programs around the country in the so-called liberal arts, which is history and literature and those type of things. Both sides of the political spectrum are guilty of that. And I mean guilty, and they should be ashamed of themselves that we've got to eliminate things that don't agree with what we want. That's what America is really about, is being able to say, we have different viewpoints. Let's debate it. Let's argue it. Not with a gun, not with a threat on the internet, not with a bomb. Let's argue about it. We did that for a long time, okay? And we don't do that anymore.
Well, yeah.
And it's primarily now, Trump and his people are responsible for it. But we've all gotten into this thing. Going back to where we started, Harvey Milk or Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So you want to have a road for Harvey Milk, I'm good with it. I signed the petition not to change the name. Although I wasn't happy when they named it after Harvey Milk. I thought if we were going to honor a gay a LGBT person, let's make it a Utah. Kate Kendall or Roberta Ochtenberg, who went to law school with me, or and was the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, I forget what, under Clinton. Or let's honor Joe Redburn.
There you go. He was a good friend of mine.
And we represented Joe. We represented the son. But he was also a really good friend of my law partner, one of my law partners, Brad Rich, and I got to know Joe really well, and I had nothing respect. Let's honor Steve Holbrook, who was the first gay legislator. Let's honor Jackie. Jackie was the first gay
mayor.
But let's honor a Utah. So that was my pushback on that. But they did it. It's great. He's dead. He is a martyr, and he was killed because he was gay. Okay, so I'm good with it. Finally got France Davis's name on a street. Should have happened a long time ago. Martin Luther King's name's on a street. Once again, to me, France deserved that in Utah, but he's got his own street now. You're dead. Somebody wants you to have a street. I'm cool with it, all right? But that's what we do. See, we cannot now, because of how polarized we are, say, okay, I disagree with that guy. I'm going to learn a little bit about him and see what's so good about him or her. We can't do that. We immediately have to go to, well, I want one of ours.
Well, then take a street and do it.
And
you don't have to poop all over the other one.
Exactly. And the other thing is, or how about this? How about maybe looking at it a little bit different, which is how we were taught to look at it up in Bingham. One of us is all of us, okay? So you name a street for John Saltas, I'm not immediately going to go, well, why don't we have a street
for the Croatians?
Where's the Hunky Street? Where's the Dago Street? No, I'm happy about that. And that's what kind of this podcast is about, because it's what we've done. It's what we have done to talk about who we are, which is proud of who you are, and let people be proud of who they are. We can't do it anymore.
No, and that's a damn shame. I mean, there's plenty of people ragging on Trevor Lee that I think that it's going to become explode. We don't need to belabor how bad of a guy that guy is, but he is a horrible human being, and he's the kind that ends up in our legislature. And that's, be that as it may, track him down. If anybody votes to change that name, you know what they stand for, because he's adamantly what he is. He's a anti-gay everything, and no use speculating why or anything like that. But this guy's a bad apple.
It doesn't matter why. It matters if you're just part of the echo of what other people are saying, and you don't think about it. And we all can be guilty of making mistakes. I mean, we can. We can all grow. We can all grow in what we understand. And we can also ask questions. And the mere fact that you ask a question about something doesn't mean you're against it. And we got to get off that rag too. But the idea that because somebody's different, it means they're bad, we got off that track a long time ago. And it's about time we stay off of it, because we're back on that track now, because you're this. By the way, speaking of that, ICE, one of the best jokes I heard recently was, how come we don't hear about Proud Boy and the Klan anymore?
They're wearing masks and wearing ICE.
Yeah, because they all joined ICE.
I've seen people, they're actually doing like facial recognitions.
Yeah.
And they're actually spotting the guy. Hey,
yeah.
This guy in his ICE uniform was 3 years ago at XYZ City marching as a Proud Boy without his mask on.
Right.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Yesterday there was a guy on, some of these are highly confrontational. It's our right. It's an American right. Go up to somebody and say, hey, I don't have to get off the sidewalk. Why are you asking me? I don't have to show my ID. These guys are coming up. Unlike, the real problem here is they've magically made ICE appear as if they are police/law enforcement. They're an entirely set of different rules.
Yeah.
And ICE is become more and more empowered within its own system because of guys like Stephen Miller, who say, hey, you have immunity, federal immunity, do what you want. A guy yesterday a woman comes up and says, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Your mother raised a terrible child, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And which is actually, I can't believe there's that many bad mothers in America, but Truthfully, that's not my mother would do that.
You can't blame it on your mother.
Well, they are what they are. So, anyways, this is going on, and how can you take money? How can you put on be paid for this? We're paying for that. The guy said, "I'd do this for free." Yeah. What? So now it's just masochists. The funniest thing about ICE now is like how long their training lasts. For a police officer, let's just say it's 6 months, 8 months, a year.
Oh yeah.
Police officer
continues.
Continues.
How long?
47 days.
There you go. Welcome to Donald Trump's America. It's not my America. It's Donald Trump's America. It's not your America.
Right.
And we can only hope. We can only hope. We've got to do our part. We try to do ours by talking, and we hope that we resonate with some of you out there. And even though we're not always right about stuff, it's the debate that counts, and the willingness to talk about this stuff. And the violence that's ongoing in this country and the threats of violence are anathema to who we are as a people. And so, John, you're bored, but you're bored for the right reasons, okay?
I think so. I hope so. Remind me someday we've got to talk about your law partner, Brad Rich. We've got to bring that up. Yeah. He defended me once, and I'll bring up that case.
Okay. Brad is a good lawyer. He's from... We'll end
here, but just say, let's commit to doing a Brad Rich.
But I'm going to say this, and then you get the last word.
You always say that, and then...
He has to have the last word. So Brad comes from Paris, Idaho, okay?
Okay.
Paris, Idaho is near Bear Lake. Rich County in northern Utah.
His family.
And Rich County in across the border in Idaho is named after his great-great-grandfather, who Brigham Young set up there to...
Kill Indians.
Maybe, but certainly to settle that area, okay?
Yeah, well, you know how they did it.
But I understand, but...
what was the name of that famous battle? It was just horrible.
Well, the Bear River.
Jesus Christ.
No, it was terrible, but we can't get into that right now.
All right.
But
Sorry, Brad.
Here's the reason, because Gil Athay, my dear friend, also is from Paris, Idaho.
Really? Did they know each other?
Oh, they knew their families, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But here is what I've always thought funny. I asked Brad one day, jokingly, I said, well, if you're from Paris, Idaho, I was being a smart ass, what do you call yourself? Are you Parisians? And he goes, no, we call ourselves parasites. And that actually is apparently the case, that if you're from Paris, you refer to yourself as a parasite. Beautiful country.
Kind of an apropos.
Beautiful country, really good people.
Yeah.
We ought to have Brad on.
Let's do.
Brad, I mean, the stuff we talk about, I haven't seen him for a long time. I'll have to get a hold of him and say, come on.
The first time I saw him, he had a hole the size of a 50-cent piece on the bottom of his shoe. I'll tell you about that.
Brad was a great lawyer.
I know he was. I'm sitting here today because of his skills.
Yeah, well, I taught him everything he knew.
Yeah, well, I was up against it.
He would actually reject that. Anyway, God bless everybody.
Right, take care, Ron.
Be safe, huh?
Yeah, don't be bored.
Don't be bored.
Or be bored, but do something about it.
Either way,
All right.
Do something about it.